Tuesday for the age of imperialism. So we are talking about the late 1800s and early 1900s. So we just finished the Industrial Revolution unit, which was late 17 and early 1800s. Now we're going late 1800s, early 1900s. Take a look at that picture, that political cartoon. What is happening there? It looks like some kind of soldier with a gun, with their body parts and arms and legs outstretched over what is a map of Africa. So that question I asked you all in class, what would you do if someone came into your bedroom and told you that all of your stuff now belonged to them? This is an idea that I want you to keep returning to if you forget what imperialism is. It's that basic idea, but with countries. One country going into another country and then saying everything now belongs to me. So who are some people shown on coins and bills in the US, and why do you think they were chosen? George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Andrew Jackson, Alexander Hamilton. Why are these people chosen to be on our currency, on our money? Probably because they were leaders of our country and had a big impact on our history and the foundation of our country. Okay? So it would make sense that England, part of the United Kingdom, England, Great Britain, United Kingdom, would have a picture of Queen Elizabeth on their money because she's the Queen of England. So why then is her face on so much currency all over the world? And the answer to that question is imperialism. So the definition, and you should be filling in your guided notes if you haven't, of imperialism is when one country takes control of another country. A more powerful country, more specifically, dominates the political, economic, and cultural affairs of a weaker country. You can always pause the video when you need more time to write if you're filling in notes. But why would a country want to control or imperialize other countries and people in other parts of the world? There are three big reasons: economics, politics, so economics being money, resources, politics, land, power, and there are cultural reasons too, such as religion, and we'll talk a little bit more about some other cultural reasons. Here you see two political cartoons. What are they expressing about imperialism? The one on the left, you always want to look at political cartoons very analytically and look at what is labeled, what is a symbol of an idea or a group of people or something. So you've got on the left, the figure in white looks like almost like a god from a Greek god or a Renaissance man, and he's holding a flag with the word civilization. There are people behind him with guns. They're all sort of dressed differently, and then you've got some non-white warriors on the other side. Their flag says barbarism. A barbarian is somebody without culture, someone who is uncivilized. So this cartoon is clearly told from the European perspective that they're coming in to bring civilization to these barbarians. Food for thought: what would the cartoon look like if it were drawn or created by someone representing the people on the other side, the barbarians? On the right side is the man in the top hat, clearly labeled England, with the octopus arms all over lands that are labeled with country names all over the world. Okay. So first reason for imperialism, economic motives. Okay. Motives meaning motivations. Okay. So you had Europeans that have just come out of the age of industrialization producing and manufacturing goods in their factories, and they need more cheap raw materials. These materials include cotton, wood, rubber, ivory. Ivory comes from tusks of elephants, rhinoceroses, and even narwhals. Ivory is used for piano keys, for jewelry, for other things, but these are materials that they can use to create goods that they can then sell. And if they don't have those materials, they know that Africa does. Africa was also seen as a potential market for their goods. So basically what that means is they want raw materials from Africa. So they're going to go in, like someone coming into your bedroom and saying, I'm taking all of this. They're going to take the raw materials back to Europe, manufacture them, create goods, bring them back to Africa, and then sell them to the Africans, even though the goods are made with resources and materials that come from Africa. So it's like me coming into your room saying, everything belongs to me now. Hold on. I'm going to take it back to my room, change it around a little bit, bring it back, and now you can pay me for this. Okay. You also have political reasons for imperialism or motivations. So it's good to feel pride in your country and have patriotism, but extreme patriotism is called nationalism. And nationalism was strong in European countries at the time. Okay, so this pride and loyalty toward your country beyond what is, a acceptable level of pride and loyalty, I guess, but it's the feeling that your country should be the best, and because your country is better than other countries. So this feeling of nationalism created competition among European countries to show off who had the most power and who had the most prestige and who had the most land and colonies around the world. So rivalries among European countries led to a race to see who could get the most colonies. So you should have nationalism and colonies in your blanks for politics. Okay? All right. Here's where things get problematic, especially problematic and tricky, and why some people refer to this time period as the second or the modern or the new age of imperialism, new imperialism, because the whole idea of territories taking over other territories has been present all throughout history. But the difference is the pace at which it took place, which was like really, really fast. And also that the idea of the white man's burden is a sort of ideology or belief system that the Europeans use to take over what they saw as less civilized nations. They thought that it was their duty or obligation to spread their culture and ideas around the world. And if you remember studying world cultures at the beginning of the world, Western culture tends to be more competitive, more individualistic. And then, of course, some of these cultures, in Africa are much more of a collectivist culture, community-oriented culture. So remember that as we go into the impacts on places like Africa. And by the way, imperialism occurred all over the world. We're just sort of zooming in on Africa at the moment to show an example. Okay, The White Man's Burden was a poem by Rudyard Kipling, who wrote The Jungle Book. And the picture on this slide is a political cartoon of, you can see a European clearly carrying a very over-exaggerated caricature of an African up the hill to civilization. Okay. Another excuse or justification used for imperialism was an idea referred to as social Darwinism. They basically took Darwin's theory of evolution and twisted it to create a bogus theory, or not one that is not true, of race by saying that some people are more fit to survive and rule than other people, and that that it comes down to racial superiority, and it is just ridiculous, but that is what they did to justify their actions. Um, so another cultural motive is religious. You know, you have missionaries, Christian missionaries, going to convert native people and trying to educate and civilize people in Africa, India, the Americas. Um, and, you know, you can think about back to the conquistadors, trying to convert natives to Christianity and how they went about that. Okay, so within religion, you want to fill in your blanks to say Europeans thought that Christianity was superior to all other forms of religion, that they wanted to spread Christianity to Africa, and that along with Christianity, they also spread European culture. Okay. The Berlin Conference of 1885. So the scramble for Africa is what this is referred to, which is that basically these leaders got together. Otto von Bismarck called these people together or leaders together in Europe, and he did that to decide how they were going to divide Africa up between them, even though Africa didn't really belong to them. And they basically, at the conference, they agreed to divide it up among themselves, and there were this many African representatives present. So there they are with the map of Africa, a drawing representing the Berlin Conference. What they did was they did not pay any attention to lines and divisions that were already part of Africa, places that had separate ethnic groups, you know, or geographic features where you would take these things into consideration when you're mapping out land. You take the land, the geography, the people. Are we putting two groups that don't get along or don't have the same beliefs in the same country? And what they did was pay no attention to that, and it created a lot of conflict within Africa and set them up for a lot of tragic impacts that are present to this day. Did Africans resist? Of course they did. Many tried to resist the takeover of their lands. The warfare was technologically superior. So you're talking about, you know, the fighting with guns versus spears. They just did not have that industrialization in Africa yet to have that advanced weaponry. But some were able to successfully resist. In fact, Ethiopia and Liberia were two countries that were able to maintain their independence when all the rest of Africa went to different European countries. The Zulu tribe in South Africa, the Zulu people in South Africa under the leadership of Shaka Zulu, they managed to fight off Europeans for a long time successfully before they eventually were overpowered. All right, so you have a lot of effects of European rule in Africa, such as, creating governments that are now based on Western ideas and run by Western governments. Traditional African rulers that were really powerful tribal leaders were stripped of any real power, completely uprooted their way of life. Economically, the Europeans exploited, meaning took advantage of for their own benefit, African economies for power, and they also turned them into cash crops that they decided on, that the Europeans decided on. So, you know, farming one big crop and in mass to make more of it to be sold. And of course, a lot of these communities were used to more of subsistence farming, farming for